What if you spent your entire life trying to fix something that was never broken? Today's guest helps people untangle trauma, rediscover who they were before the world told them who they had to become, and shows how understanding autism, ADHD, and their own stories can become the beginning of healing. So sit back, relax, and grab your favorite beverage, and let's learn more about my next guest. See you there, everybody.
I wanna believe in the truth, but only see what I'm shown. Got the freedom to choose, but can't decide on my own. Follow what the group is thinking, bottle up my intuition till it's popping out the.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Neurodivergent Connection. Today I'm joined with Patricia Stellers. Welcome to the show, Patricia.
Thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem. So take me back to the little girl you were before the world started telling you who you should be. Who was she when nobody was watching?
I love it. I'm doing a lot of inner child work right now, actually looking at my art that I made in kindergarten and like the very hands-on with that period. So I was definitely a very like loner child, I would say. But it wasn't like in a sad way. Like I really liked just like like deep solitude. And so for me, like we had this really beautiful backyard and it had all these like nooks and pathways, and I would just be in the backyard for like hours. And I literally don't remember anyone playing in the backyard with me. Like I don't remember friends or my brothers or my parents. It was just like me digging holes, playing with bugs, like catching like different insects and creating like dream worlds.
All right. What did she love that others didn't understand?
Dirt and bugs.
What part of her felt the most alive?
Um, I think also like really it was like imaginary worlds, like dreaming a lot and then like making art and like I at that time it wasn't really like art, it was like mostly like a lot of crafts and stuff. But I was like that was definitely like probably my first like special interest.
Looking back, what do you think she was trying to tell you, trying to tell the adults around her?
Well, um, hmm, what was she trying to tell me or the adults around me? Yeah. I look back and I'm like, I don't understand how she was like as wise as she was or creative as she was. But
Mm,
then I'm also like, oh, but that's me. That's like how I've always lived. So I feel like the biggest thing that feels like urgent for me then and for me now is that like this world can be better. And for me, I think the world was like my little family, my
hmm
house. And there was just like a lot of chaos and like trauma and stuff. So it was kind of like I never felt like that was what life should be. So it was like dreaming up new worlds and new lives and like realities that I felt like were possible. And that's yeah, so that I learned a lot from like my inner child thinking back and looking at that kind of stuff.
Take me back to the first moment you realized you were moving through the world differently than people around you.
Um I honestly feel like it wasn't that understood. Like,
Hmm
I feel like I was like told that I was weird and crazy and I was like psychic as a child, but I was in this religious upbringing, so they thought that it was like the devil. And so yeah, I feel like the difference wasn't like I didn't realize I was different. I just actually thought I was like problematic, like it was just like what's wrong with me kind of thing, more than like feeling different in like a special way.
Did you think there was something wrong with you?
Oh yeah. And I was told that. So I definitely thought that, yeah.
What story did you begin telling yourself about the difference?
Mm, like just like some examples, I think I I was like rebellious without trying to be. So like if somebody would tell me something like in Catholic school, like this is how the world works, this is what's true, my brain was like trying to understand things that felt like they weren't true or like clear. Like it was like kind of like felt like they were ambiguous. Like maybe it could be this way, maybe it could be that way. And So I ended up like my classmates were like, "You're such a rebel," da, da, da. And I was like, "I'm not. I'm literally not trying. I'm just trying to understand like what's going on here and like what are we being taught and how do I just like stay above water and like pass my
Mhm.
classes, you know?" So I think that was like an example. And then also not being able to sit still, like kind of just in more, it was like more, it used to be run by nuns. So it was kind of more just like sit in your chair, like don't move. And so, yeah, I feel like maybe the stories were like just a lot of like what's wrong with me and like why can't I accept what people are telling me? Like, why can't I just like be quiet or why can't I just like sit still? Like those felt like there was just like a lot of like punishment around that kind of stuff for me.
How long did you carry that story for?
Oh, probably until yesterday. No, I mean I feel like it's probably been the last like 5 years I've like started realizing like, oh, I'm gifted and like there's things about me that are like really special and like realizing like also that not everybody experiences life the way I do. I think like that's like feels like a more last couple years thing that I've realized and like accepting that in a really positive way instead of like as like a frustrating or like problematic way.
Growing up, were you searching more for understanding or belonging?
It's always been understanding. I've always had these like existential questions that are like beyond my age and I like just want to understand everything about people. How do we get this way? Like all that kind of stuff.
What's the difference between the two?
What do you mean?
What's the difference between understanding or belonging?
I don't know. What do you think? Like, I guess I'm having trouble answering that.
I think with belonging, it's you're trying to figure out where you belong, and then with understanding, it's more like you're trying to understand why you are the way you are.
And so, you asked what's the difference between them?
Yeah, what's the difference?
Well, I guess for me, like, I kind of, I kind of feel like I don't know that I've like tried to belong because I don't think it ever seemed possible. And I feel like I had this realization I was like having like a like psychedelic assisted therapy journey about like a year and a half ago. And I was like in a group and I was feeling really like you don't belong with them, like you don't laugh at their jokes, like you don't,
Mhm.
and and I'm like, are you seriously telling yourself that? Like, and then it was sort of like you don't belong anywhere, which means you belong everywhere, like if you're not part of like a little tribe that follows these rules, then you really can go anywhere and leave. You can come and leave instead of just being like my identity is these 10 rules and I have to follow those in order to belong. So yeah, I feel like for me belonging is like it's not been really a priority. It doesn't really feel like it was ever accessible, but that journey
Mhm.
helped me to realize like that's a good thing. Like you get to come and go and you get to go different places and you get to like I feel like have kind of thought about myself as like a sociologist in a way of just like studying and observing like from the outside. And that's where understanding is like it's always been so important. And I think that's like what's like driven me a lot and in things that I find really interesting about understanding completely different perspectives and different cultures and stuff like that.
Now, can someone belong somewhere without being understood?
No, I don't. That's why I have never I don't think so. And that's like probably a very like narrow, like my experience perspective. It's not like the right answer, but I love that question because I feel like it gets to the heart of like this idea that I have.
When did you first feel truly seen?
Oh gosh. Um, it's kind of like a sad, it's kind of like a sad story. But yeah, I feel like for me, like I had experienced a lot of abuse and like gaslighting around that and denial. And I had escaped like an abusive assault with my partner when I was trying to leave. And I ran to refuge to a friend's house and I told her what happened. And she just believed me. And I was like, how have I been on earth this long? And it took me until this moment for one single person to see me and to see that, like, what I was saying about something that somebody was doing to me was like true and real. And then they like helped me so much. And I felt that was, I was like, God, why did it take so long? But that was like really the first time I felt really like seen and understood and believed.
Take me back to a version of yourself that was working incredibly hard to be everyone else needed to be you. Or take me back to a version of yourself that was working incredibly hard to be who everyone else needed you to be.
Um, yeah, I think it was like, I think the most it's it's been sprinkled throughout. I think the most like problematic, intensive time that was going on was in that relationship. That partner was dealing with like ADHD, depression, and alcoholism, none of which were being treated. And their family was really toxic. And I just completely was this like codependent piece that was like way too invested in like every person in this family that was not my own to try to provide them needs and like just completely neglecting my own, and it ended up costing me in a huge way, but I learned so much from it. And I know now that like I won't ever do that again.
Was she afraid would have what what was she afraid would happen if she stopped?
Like people wouldn't be okay.
What did that performance protect?
What did it protect? I don't know. Is there like, I guess, what do you mean by that?
What did you hmm, what part of you, I guess, was protecting yourself?
Oh, I guess it was kind of like,
Basically masking when you were pretending to be someone else. What was it? What was that protecting of you?
I feel like maybe like who I really was. Like I feel like I was never really like I was seeing others, but they weren't really seeing me. And I feel like there was like a lot where it's like, yeah, I don't feel like I was seen in that
Mhm.
group or protected either in the ways that I was like
Mm.
protecting.
That that almost seems to be what everyone who I've talked to has dealt with something like with masking is the minute they stop, they realize that they become their true selves and that they've been being this other person for so long that they're no longer themselves. And then the minute they
Hmm.
realize this is like I've been being somebody for someone for so long that I haven't been my true. And then the minute they stop it, it's like that other person's like, what happened to that other side of you? And it's like that other side of me was just me hiding of who I
Yeah.
truly am. And if you don't like this me, the
Hmm.
real me, then you can go.
Yeah. No, that's a good way of putting it because I was definitely like on my path to becoming an artist and a healer, and none of that was like supported or accepted. And it was like a lot of resistance and being
Mm,
told a lot of things I was as a child. You're crazy, you're
mm,
weird, what are you thinking? And it was like, I think I kind of just maybe like woke from this like delusion that I was in or the
mhm,
illusion. And once I started to like really realize like also like my value and my needs, then it really crumbled. And I feel
mhm,
like it's like the relationship crumbled, but also every part of me crumbled in the process of that like
mm,
explosive ending, um, where it felt like I had no choice but to like really consciously work like my ass off to figure out like who it is that I am and
Hmm.
like what it was that is my purpose, because I'd always been like searching, but I feel like I hadn't, like that was like such a catalyst in my healing of realizing like, yeah, like I was like, when you're kind of backed against the wall, it's like you're like, oh wait, who am I actually and what do I stand for? And so it was like just finding, there's this quote that says like, don't waste a good crisis. And I saw it at that time and I was like, okay, this is for something, you know, it's not just for tragedy.
What parts of yourself got left behind along the way?
I think like insecure parts, especially narratives with my upbringing around gender, of like this idea that like Patricia is only half of an existence, that like she needs this other half to be like a full, to have like a full life, and that her worth is determined by a partner,
Hmm.
and her value is determined by that. And it was like a lot of like subtle like religious deprogramming and like societal, because I think even if you're like American and you don't, and if you feel like your family's like atheist, like you didn't have like a religious experience, like I think our country is so influenced by a lot of these ideas around gender, and capability, and it's part of our laws and everything, with you know differences between men and women. And so yeah, I feel like there was a lot of parts of it that needed to die very painfully, and those were some of the like deepest level of work and that I really needed to do.
Now, many neurodivergent people become experts at surviving. When did you realize survival and living weren't the same thing?
I'll write that down. Survival and living. Hmm. Yeah, I think I think I realized this like I was in a marriage and I was always dreaming. I started dreaming about, like I'd always thought about reincarnation. I was dreaming about like, well, when I die, I will be reincarnated. And then in my next life, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. And it's gonna be great. And and that was when like I did that a lot. And then I realized like, wait a second, I think you're just like surviving. Like you're just like keeping by. And it felt like I wasn't like living in the fullest expression of what I was capable of and also like what I deserved. And and yeah, and even my partner too, he would be like, oh yeah, when you die, I'm gonna do this in you know my next experience, or oh when he dies, I'll do this. And it was like, what are we doing here? Like, and so I think that was like a big moment where I realized like, no, this is my life. This is the life that I have. I don't know what's happening after this. We have no idea. So it felt like there was a fight that needed to happen with myself to realize like, what does it mean to really like live fully, and how can I access that like the moment that I realize it's a problem, instead of like when I retire. You know, so many of us are like, well, when I retire, I'll get to do this or that. And it's like, I think when you have these realizations, like it's almost like I think of like someone's like kind of like swimming underwater and they're like maybe they're drowning, they can't really breathe, they can't really see, and then all of a sudden but they've been down there for years and that's the whole life was like in the water, and then they come up and it's like a huge gasp of air and you see this whole other world above the water, and then it's like you can't unsee it, you know. So I think that um that was something where I realized like, yeah, it's not just living and breathing here, it's like using your gifts and making the most out of it.
What was survival costing you?
Um, it was a pretty heavy cost. I was avoiding, because I really didn't know how to heal at that time. I mean, I was actually doing a lot of healing work and talk therapy, but I wasn't, I just didn't know how really to do that. I didn't know how to heal. I didn't know what was possible, and I kept trying, and it was just costing me so much peace. And I had developed like before I was graduating from college, I had developed like a really intensive chronic pain condition that was super debilitating, and I almost couldn't finish school, but I did. And that was a big cost to survival that I've been able to heal through a lot of living, like just not just therapy and not just somatic practice, but like actually living really fully. And in like really focusing on the special interests that I have and in my dreams. And I think that has healed me more than anything else.
Now, before you found answers, what questions kept you awake at night?
Oh gosh. mm, let's see. I'm gonna write this down so I can think about it. Okay, there's four. I'm almost there. Okay, so um when I was younger, like in like the angst of this, it was like, what's wrong with me? Why am I so alone? And like, will I ever experience unconditional love? And that's like young me. And then I think like this was a question when I was younger, but this is now it's like the number one question I feel like of like the rest of my life's work, which is like, why is the world so violent?
What did what did you hope someone would finally understand?
Mm, I think I didn't know it then. I really had no clue what I was hoping for because it was so far from what you would hope for was
Hmm.
like the life that I was living and the way that I was living. But I think now what I hope for from people that I meet and that I know is that they can recognize that the differences that I have, like how I move my body, how I talk, how I regulate, how I can get overwhelmed by things that seem like I'm so capable in these areas, but then these things are so challenging for me and they seem really easy for other people. And so then they think like, oh, she must be stupid or she must be incapable. I think for me, it's like I would want people to understand, and not just like for me, but like for the world, that neurodivergent people, we exist differently. It's
Hmm.
not that we're trying to be difficult. It's not that we're selfish. It's not that we're like, we can't, why can't we participate like everybody else? It's like, I wish that people understood that, like, that you don't need to participate like anybody else and that, like, you get to live however you want to live. And I feel like that doesn't only help neurodivergent people, but it helps neurotypical people as well to give
Hmm.
themselves more permission to live their life more fully too.
Now, speaking of neurodivergence, when autism and ADHD entered the story, what did they give you that you didn't have before?
Oh gosh. um, hmm. Yeah, I mean, I feel like because of all the other like healing work I had done and what I've been continuing to do, I feel like it was like I'd been working on self-love and compassion, and it was like a struggle.
Hmm.
And I feel like at that point, it was just like, oh my God, like everything makes sense. And it just gave me so much like peace and acceptance of myself and
Hmm.
compassion for like shit. Like one thing I say is I'm like, why did it take me until I was 36 years old to realize I was special? And I think like, how cool would that have been if I knew that when I was young and if that was like fostered? So I think that was like a big thing.
What part of you suddenly made sense?
Um, my like my imagination, like, and its capabilities, and how like as a founder, it's like you get to build this. You're not just dreaming anymore. You are actually executing on this vision that is like going to be again like the work of my life, like a decades long process. Um, and sorry, remind me your question again.
What part of you suddenly made sense?
Yeah, the dreaming, the execution of that, the creativity, and the like not coloring the lines. Like if you gave me a coloring book at any point in my life, I will not complete that to like a neurotypical satisfaction. And they'll be extremely frustrated with the colors that I choose, the arrangement of colors, the textures, and like the out of the lines nature. But to me, it's like you couldn't pay me $1 million to do that because I actually don't want to. And I'm an abstract artist, and I was able to become an abstract painter and realize that's how you color. That is how you express. And it's not a deficiency. It's way fucking better. Like for me, it's way better.
I once went on an interview and the guy looks at my resume and he sees that I've done tech work and I've done retail and I've done this and he goes, "You're an abstract thinker and you're a linear thinker." He's like, "I've never seen both." I'm like, "Oh, really? Then you've never met someone who's neurotypical before or neurodivergent before, because we can be
Hmm.
both."
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
Now you help people heal, but I'm curious. Before healing became your work, what did healing mean to you personally?
It was a fight. Like I grew up in such a like fightful home and stuff that it was always like it always felt like I was like going to battle. Like, all right, I got work to do. I gotta go. And in the beginning, I was doing therapy sometimes for 3 hours a week and working a really intensive schedule and commuting like an hour to work every day. Um, and I look back and I'm like, what the fuck were you doing? Like, because it was like everything was like, we gotta fight. And like working hard is like productive and it's like getting you, it's achievement. And so yeah, I feel like it was so much like suffering and like
Mhm.
impatience. There was this angst in me that now I see it's like the last 5 generations of women in my lineage are like you have to break these patterns. You have to do this work in your lifetime. So it's like been so compressed. Um, and that was like a big part early on, which I see now. And I'm like, nobody needs to suffer that much in their healing. Nobody needs to work that intensively and with that much like urgency. Um,
Mhm.
because other people don't want to get to where I am now and they don't need to. But for me to have been able to be able to support others at the age that I am now, I also don't regret that. It was exhausting.
Do you think many neurodivergent people are trying to heal from being different? What they really need is to heal from being told they're wrong.
Yes, that's what I find. I have had amazing therapists, and I recently had this realization where I was like, you know what? I had to tell my therapist that I has helped me so much. I said, you know what? I need somebody who's neurodivergent to be my therapist. And I didn't even know if that's possible, actually. I just didn't know. And I found this practice that's like everybody is, and that's a lot of
Mm.
their clients are. And I find that I thought I would, because I didn't know about like neuroforming work. I thought like, okay, and people say treat autism, treat these things. And I was thinking that, oh, I'll go to someone and then they'll help me like fit in. And it's like, no, that's not what's happening. I'm actually healing from all the things other people have told me. And I'm just living more expressively and more colorfully and like in a way becoming more different, but it's not a problem. It's like becoming actually who I'm supposed to be. And that it feels so light and easy and free and beautiful and so much better than like these like traditional and very present practices that's like we need to like tame them or something.
How do you help someone separate the two things?
Which two things?
The fact that heal from try to heal from being different and heal from being told they're wrong.
And sorry, so the question
Is how do you help someone separate the two?
being different and being wrong. I think that a really good way that we can help people heal is it's a quote I used to have here, and I think I've memorized it now, which is that your own healing is the greatest message of hope for others. And so I think like we could talk about it all day.
Hmm.
But if you actually like go with me and we take a hike, or you come into my space and you see how colorful and expressive it is, like this room's about to be blue. Um, and I think like that's how you can show that it's like the heal from, I don't know, the heal from being different is like that's not something you need to do, you know?
Now, let's talk about your retreat for a minute.
Mhm.
When someone arrives at your retreat carrying years of exhaustion, masking trauma, and self-doubt, what do you hope they discover about themselves before they leave?
Yeah. So, and the way that I work is it's almost like a 3 month process at minimum. Some people work with me for like 6 months or whatever, but we do coaching before to figure out like kind of assessing things so that it's not just simply like come here and in a couple days, it's like learning these thoughts, these patterns and everything like that. So I think like to discover about yourself is really like compassion for yourself, compassion for others as well, because we do need to acknowledge the things that have been done to us. But we also don't want to be like, we don't want to carry that like anger, you know?
Hmm.
And so I think like self-compassion, just like compassion for all. And also like there's a word that I teach a lot with from more of like Eastern philosophy. It's like part of this ethical framework called the yamas and niyamas. And one of the terms is ahimsa or nonviolence. And it's really about it's not just the physical act of causing physical violence, it's what you think, what you say to yourself, what you put in your body, how you treat your body. And a lot of times when we've had this like a whole lifetime of all this stuff, we're harming ourselves in little ways. We're eating poorly, we're sleeping poorly, we're telling ourselves the things that other people told us, what's wrong with me, why am I so stupid, why can't I do this?
Hmm.
And so it's like I really try to educate and work with people on the fact that that is violence, that you are perpetuating what has been done to you. And when you can stop that inside, then you start to hear it outside of you. And you start to hear, you know what? Even though I've been told that my whole life, I need to look at this differently as violence. It's a violent act. It's harming me and it's harmed me for years. And then it's kind of starting to even just see it and then teaching how to like set boundaries and really protecting energy. I think like we are so special and tender. And it's like you talk about boundaries all day. I did for years with people and I couldn't understand it. But once I realized like this, I was like, oh, no, no. Like, I don't deserve to be spoken to in those ways, and nobody does. And it's worth like standing up for, and it's worth teaching other people that they are worthy enough to insist on better language from their loved ones and the people that they work with, or that they're around.
What surprises people about themselves?
That they are special. I mean, how often have you found that? Like, do you find that it's like, holy shit, I thought I was the problem. And then you realize like, I'm not a problem.
What do they remember that they had forgotten?
Honestly, I feel like we use that a lot. What do you remember that you forgot? And I honestly feel like some of these things are like, I never knew this, you know? Never until I did.
Now, you work with couples and intimacy. What do you think it means to truly see another person?
Gosh, it's so beautiful. I think like oh gosh. I feel like that's like the most beautiful part of living is like
Hmm.
whether it's your partner or your child or your friend or someone that you know, like to be truly witnessed and just
Hmm.
held, like not just physically, but like held in the space and listened to and like seen and loved through like the worst of you and the most, uncomfortable and annoying or whatever it is. Like, I think like showing safety within a relationship is like one of the most beautiful things that I get to witness. And I actually use these candles. I don't know, have you ever seen the candles where it's like in the shape of a person?
Yeah, I think.
Though, so for the couples retreats, I have this beautiful metaphysical store that I go to, and I collaborate with like the staff. I'm like, okay, this is my people. What are we gonna get? We get like crystals and incense and things specific for them and like where they're at in their life. But I always pick out two candles that are related to like a chakra or part that they're working on and their colors. So, and I set up an altar and I do a lot of candle work. And so I have like the man, like I've like in like a, I'll have like the husband and the wife as candles, and they're looking at each other and they're naked in the candle. And so we burn that and we talk about this as like you're here to witness each other and just simply looking at each other naked with nothing. You don't need anything. You don't have any expectations. It's just being there. And then it's really cool because this candle melts. It takes like 6 hours or 8 hours, and you can just watch it like and interpret the wax melting. And it's a really cool thing. But yeah, I just feel like it's so beautiful. It brings me to tears. Like couples I work with, I don't work with people in crisis. I work with people that are like really just like, I want to feel more present with my partner. I want to feel more present with my kids, and like helping release trauma or fear around vulnerability and stuff. So it's like a lot of like that deepening intimacy. And I cry every time. Always happy tears. Like before and after, I'm like, it was so beautiful.
How does being truly seen change us?
Well, I think it helps our nervous systems to feel safe. It changes our breath. It changes how we hold our organs. When you're like, oh, what are they going to say? What are they going to say? You're like holding on. And then when you really feel like you're like, okay, I can be safe, like you just really let go. And when you have your nervous system in like parasympathetic often, which we should be, it's just like so much safety in the body and the mind
Mhm.
that if you don't ever access safety in your own self, then I think it's impossible to actually heal anything really.
What's the difference between being loved and being known?
Loved and known. Hmm. Well, I guess I would say that like, yeah, I think like I can think of a lot of people that have loved me, and loved me in my life and throughout my
Mhm.
life who've loved me so much, and so well, really. Um, but I feel like the majority haven't actually known me.
Mhm.
And I think that's really common. I think like a lot of people have a lot of people that love them, but that don't really know them. And
Mm.
sometimes then you feel like in order to maintain that love, I can't be known. And so, yeah, I feel like I don't know, I guess like there's a difference. Then you have relationships where you are both loved and known. And I think those can be like much fewer and far between, but those have just such a special depth that is different.
Mhm.
And I don't want to like negate the loved and not being known because that's a big part of existing. And how people love. It just depends on what you're willing to share
Yeah.
and what they're willing to share.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Now, after all the lives you've touched and all the stories you've heard, what questions about being human are you still trying to answer?
I still want to know, why are we so violent? And why are we fighting over land? Why are we fighting over resources? Why do we think that the earth can be owned by contracts? And why do we think that any people are better than any other people, neurodivergent, neurotypical aside? Like geographically speaking, from a class perspective, from a financial perspective, like I still just want to know, like,
Mm.
why, and why? And also, have we ever not been? Have we ever not been violent? And I don't know. And I just, yeah, like I'm really passionate about world peace. And I feel like it starts within each of us. And, we can
Mm.
create the world that we want to live in.
If the younger version of you could see the life you've built today, what do you think would bring tears to her eyes?
All of it. One of the big things is like I said, the colors of the house, like just painting this house. I moved in here and I was like, this is going to be the house where I really am myself and I have colors. And so my entry was like bright blue, my kitchen's this beautiful purple, and then I have this my bedroom is this like fiesta carnival, like it's like this like yeah, it's so cool. And it's like a bright pink coral on the ceiling and the wall. There's like a marigold yellow on two walls, and then there's just like amazing teal, like it really intensive, not pastel, not light, really intensive. And it just invigorates me so much. And I wake up and I'm like, this is my life, and I like tell my inner child, I'm like, girl, we got here. All your dreams were so valuable, and those dreams kept me alive and well enough to cope to get to here. And here is like the best place to be.
And for anyone listening who feels broken, lost, or like they don't belong, what would you like them to know?
I mean, it's very simple, but it's like you are actually not alone. You might be in a little ecosystem in your town or your community or your church or your friends that's like makes you feel really alone. But in the world, you are so not alone. Like there are so many people that are living exactly like you, thinking the exact same things that you are. And I always tell people, you just don't know them yet. If you don't know one other person who's experienced the trauma that you have or the experiences that you have, then you've got to go find them. Like you have to expand your circle to go find, even if you just find one person that experiences things that you have experienced, that's enough. Because then you'll realize it's possible. You're not the only one. And then you can find another friend, and like,
Mhm.
so I think that's like a big thing is we get stuck and we just think like, I'm so alone in the world. And it's just not true.
And finally, where can people find out more about you online?
Yeah, so I have my website and I have two Instagram pages. So my website is invocationhealingarts.com, and Invocation Healing Arts is the name of my business. And then I have an art page, which is like sometimes like dark art, sometimes light art. It's like very expressive. And that is on Instagram at Invocation Healing Arts. And then for my retreats and other offerings and coaching and stuff like that, I do or pop-up events. My Instagram is at Invocation Retreats.
And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That was Patricia Stellers, and I'm Reed Miles. Stay fearless, stay curious, and remember, wherever you are, you're never alone. See you in the next one. Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you.